Я изучаю по-русски в школе. Я говорю чуть-чуть, я не понимаю ничего. So, and don't even, if my Russian's bad, my Ukrainian's worse. So I apologize. I also, as you can tell, I've completely lost my voice. I'm not normally this gravelly, but somebody told me I sound like a cowboy in a movie. So hopefully that'll help me out today. So I wanted to start out by sharing a story that was written by Malcolm Gladwell in the New Yorker a couple of years back. Malcolm Gladwell, you may have read some of his books, Tipping Point and Outliers. He wrote an article about the CEO of Tibco Software, Vivek Ranadive. I butchered his last name. But he grew up in India, grew up playing soccer and cricket, but now lives in Silicon Valley. And he was coaching his daughter's basketball team. Well, he knew nothing about basketball, so he started, watching professional games a little more, paying attention to how the game was played. And the thing that he just couldn't understand was that, the team would score, and then they would turn around and they'd run down to the other end of the field, other end of the court, and wait, and they'd leave half the court unattended and just give it up. And so when he started coaching his daughter's team, he said, you know what, we're going to run a very aggressive full court press. So who watches basketball? All right, so we got a couple. So a full court press is where you were on them for the entire length of the floor. So he's got these middle school girls who were too small, too skinny, not very good, and he's got them running a full court press, and they destroyed everybody. And they were beating people so bad that the opposing team's parents were coming up to him after the game saying, this isn't fair. Like, this isn't how the game's played. It's not fun. And he said, hey, we're winning. Tough. But he took an undersized and mediocre team, and he won by changing the rules and by playing the game in a way that most people just didn't play it. And it gave him a strategic advantage. So when we think about traditional work, well, the way we work today, it oriented decades and decades ago. So traditional work, it's co-located, it's centralized, it's long-term. If you have a job in one city and the person you want is in another city, you pay for them to move to your city and come to your office. If you're going to expand internationally, you go replicate the exact same model in another city. So the core model that most of us work in today really hasn't changed in a long time. And the problem with it is, first of all, it's expensive. For anybody who has negotiated a rental agreement lately, office space is expensive, equipment is expensive, the overhead associated with traditional employment is really expensive. The traditional model is also very time consuming. If Gary, our CEO, said, okay, Matt, you've got budget to hire a new business development person, it's going to take me 60, 90, 120 days to actually put someone in the seat. Traditional recruiting just takes forever. And then, just trying to get them in the seat is damn near impossible. It's extremely competitive. The best people have lots of opportunities. And using Odesk as an example, so here's little old Odesk. It's our office in Redwood City. You think about Silicon Valley, you think about all the great talent we have. Well, we got this little problem called Facebook, Google, eBay, and Apple, who are black holes for talent. They suck up everybody that's good, and they pay them a lot more money than we could ever afford. And then you got this other little problem, which are all these hot startups up in San Francisco, which is where all the young folks live. Well, they don't want to drive down to Redwood City. They want to work in San Francisco where all the cool kids are. So, and then when you really look at the entire landscape in our local market, these are all the hot startups in Silicon Valley. So Odesk, we need to hire 15 developers next quarter. In the traditional model, trying to compete with all these companies for talent that has more money being thrown at them than they know what to do with, how are we going to do it? So what we've done is we're not playing on one part of the court. We're covering the entire court. And so what we've done is we've built a global team. We have freelancers in, I think, 50 different countries. Our full-time team is about 120 employees. about 100 of which are based in our office in Redwood City. But then we have these freelancers that are core part of our organization working from all over the world. So this has given us a major advantage. So when we think about the future of work and where the world is headed, it's not about competing for the best talent in Kiev. It's about competing for the best talent no matter where they happen to sit. And it gives you a much broader set of opportunity, a much broader set of skills, and ultimately it's going to help you build a better business. And the reasons behind this, well, first of all, employment has become more fluid. So my dad worked for Hewlett-Packard for 25 years. I've never held a job for more than 5.5. And I think we're headed towards a world where people are working for 5 companies at one time instead of one company for 5 years. We also have a major demographic shift underway in how we build and maintain relationships. We have a whole group coming into the workforce that doesn't know what life was like before the internet. And you think about just online dating. When I was dating a long time ago, I also have 4 kids, the idea of finding my soulmate online didn't feel very likely. That was not where I was going to find the woman of my dreams. 5 years later, I know 3 or 4 people that met and got married online, and now they have 4 kids. So how we connect online, how we build relationships, how we manage relationships over time, it started out as social and, posting stupid videos of my cat. Now people are meeting and sharing professional experiences via the internet. And then finally, you have a lot of technology that makes this model possible in a way that wasn't possible 10, 15 years ago. You have the movement of enterprise software from being in the office, behind a firewall, in a closet somewhere that only the engineer can get into, to being online, on the web, accessible from anywhere in the world. You have the proliferation of very low cost or free communication and collaboration tools. Every day, the 120 full-time Odesk employees are talking and doing video chats with our 350 freelancers all over the world for free. And then the final piece is online payments. I mean, we've talked a lot about mobile payments and online payments today. You couldn't move money efficiently enough 10 years ago to make the Odesk model work. If you've got people working for $10, $15 an hour and they have to pay a $35 international wire transfer fee, it's not going to happen. So having models like PayPal, having the banking systems in developing countries evolve, that has opened up, all these things have opened up online work in a way that wasn't possible before. So, the model that, I think Odesk is somewhat of an extreme example in terms of how we use our own platform, but there's increasing acceptance that the online work model is here. The future of work will be online and distributed. Excuse me. I hope nobody wants to talk to me after this because I'm not going to have anything left. So we see the future of work as, first of all, global. Now, going global is nothing new for large companies, but what is new is companies are going global much earlier in their life cycle. We see very, very small companies building global teams from the beginning. The future of work is also online. And the ability to, back to my example of how hard it would be for Odesk to recruit in Silicon Valley, the opportunity to access both talent and jobs for the worker not available in the local geography is game changing. So we really think the online component is going to be a really important piece. And then finally, the future of work is on demand. So it's not about working for that one company for 25 years and retiring. It's about working for lots of different companies at any given time. Now, this evolution in work is really, online work is just a logical extension of where we've been. So when you think about telecommuting in the 90s, that was actually in the US, believe it or not, one of the innovators in telecommuting was the US government. And I can count on one hand the number of things that the US government has been innovators in. But they actually recognized the cost effectiveness and the flexibility and moved a lot of the workforce to telecommuting. The outsourcing model got us comfortable working with people who are not part of our company as if they were part of our company. So when you pick up the phone, at least in the U.S., and you call the cable company because it went down for the 10th time that week, you're not talking to someone from Comcast or AT&T. You're talking to someone working for another company pretending to work for Comcast or AT&T. And then offshoring started to lower the inhibitions around working across borders. So we're just much more comfortable working globally than we were years ago. And I think the e-commerce analogy is a great one. So when I talk to companies who are just getting familiar with this idea and the concept of the future of work being online and global, they always say, I just can't imagine having somebody on the other side of the world with access to my code. Well, 20 years ago, if you said, hey, would you like to buy a car online? People would have said, no way. I'm not going to store my credit card on the internet. Who would do that? That's insane. Now people are buying classic cars, they're buying HD TVs, they're doing things online that now it's just no big deal. But when you think about e-commerce, as big as it is, it's somewhere between 6 to 8% of global retail sales. So while it's a major economic force and it's driven a ton of growth and a ton of business, it's still a relatively small portion. So you think about online work, we're nowhere even remotely close to this vision of where we think things will be. But I think e-commerce lays a nice analogy of where the future of online work can go. So just as an example, so this is the dollars earned on Odesk over the last couple of years. And I think one of the interesting trends we've seen is it started out as almost entirely tech. And actually it started out primarily in Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine is number 2 in terms of total IT work done on our platform. Russia's number 3. But we saw this explosion in 2009, 2010 of non-tech work. And you know what we did to foster all of that non-tech work? Nothing. We just stayed out of the way. It showed up on its own, and we have this whole liquid market now and this long tail of skills. So I think this is it's an interesting proof point of once the platform is available, people will just jump on and run with it. So in terms of the specifics of how companies are using it today and where we think they'll head, a lot of it starts with project-based work. I've got this one little thing I need Friendster cloned for $60. Can't imagine why that failed. So these little project-based programs, that's how a lot of companies get started, and then they start to augment their staff, and it becomes a more permanent part of their team over time. Some of the larger companies are actually looking at online work as an alternative to the traditional business process outsourcing model. So instead of outsourcing it to a vendor, they're actually building their own team online. And then finally, you have this idea of these virtual companies where they start from the beginning as a distributed online team. And one of the questions we get is, well, isn't this just shifting local jobs to somewhere else? So Ukraine is actually one of our fastest growing client countries. So it's always been a great market for us for freelancers, but we're seeing more and more countries from the Ukraine hiring online. And when we talk to them and we ask them, what would you do if online work wasn't an option? They say they either would have delegated it to someone internally, they would have done it themselves, or they just wouldn't do it at all. So in many cases, this is allowing small businesses to do work that they normally wouldn't get done. They also think that it's good for the economy. Again, because they're able to get work done that they wouldn't normally be able to accomplish, it's actually creating new jobs, new opportunities. I was talking with a company in Australia a couple months ago, and the quote from the CEO was, I have 3 full-time employees in my office in Darwin because I have 6 freelancers on Odesk. So it really is driving more work locally. And we also think, again, based on what we hear from our clients, this is a permanent trend. The people who have gotten used to this and have found this model, there really is no other way to access this talent. So once you get comfortable with the model and once you try it and you make it part of your business, it's really hard to go back to the traditional way of hiring. So, again, to pull things together, our view is that by 2020, 1 out of every 3 knowledge workers will be working online. According to company MBO Partners, 50% of all Americans will be independent contractors by 2020. So there are there's a lot of data that leads us to believe that this is where the world is headed. And for businesses, it's all about access to talent, and it's all about flexibility. And for those of you that are in the room trying to build a startup, your visibility into where your business is headed, it's just not that good right now. You don't know what skills you're going to need in 6 months. So the ability to hire flexible teams, and whether they're on the other side of the Ukraine or whether they're on the side of the world, that can be a matter of life and death. So being able to extend your runway and be more flexible might be the difference that makes a difference when it comes to your company succeeding. And when we talk to our freelancers and we talk to the people working on our platform, it's all about freedom and choice and opportunity. The people who are working on Odesk are choosing to work this way because they have a lot more control over their lives. If they want to work from Odessa for a couple weeks when the weather's nice, they can do it. If they decide they want to change their skills and work on different projects, they can do it. And when we talk to the millennial generation that's just coming into the workforce, their expectations about their long-term opportunities and how they want to live their lives and how they want work and employment to be part of their lives, it's a very different mindset than the people who are leaving the workforce and retiring today. So hopefully this has given you a couple things to think about, and happy to connect with everyone afterward. So thank you.
Matt, just let me say thanks. Do you also have 4 kids?
I have 4 kids.
So we have 8 kids, you know,
I have
together.
I've slept better this week than I've slept in 8 years, as a matter of fact. So.
Yeah, that's great. Matt, thank you so much. And sorry, one more time. Sure. Ukraine is the 2nd country on Odesk, all over the world. All over the world.
So in terms of total earnings across our platform, it's number 4. In terms of IT earnings, so earnings and development work, it's number 2.
Wow.
Okay. So Ukraine, the reason we're here is it's been a fantastic market for us from a talent perspective, and it's an increasingly important market for us from a client perspective.
Amazing. Cool. Thanks again, Matt, and good luck for your voice.